Ben Okri, el novelista nigeriano radicado en Londres, es el más joven miembro del trío de haces de la literatura de Nigeria. Chinua Achebe, Wole Soyinka, Premio Nobel de Literatura, y el propio Ben Okri, quien en 1991 recibió la más alta distinción literaria que da Inglaterra, el Premio Booker. Ben,
I wonder if going to the Obiku children, do mothers, you said they recognize those children. Are they sad when they die and they go back to the world?
Oh yes.
Or they know?
Oh no, it's devastating. No mother wants to lose their child. Or those. These days, strange things happen all over the world. But in a normal circumstance, no mother does. It's a tragic thing. This is why I say the spirit child myth is the Abiku phenomena is a tragic phenomena. It is not only depressing or frightening, it is the single greatest condemnation that the unborn have towards we who are alive and what we do with society, what we do with our possibilities, what we do with human life, what we do with the failure to love, the failure to overcome our bitternesses, our stupidities, the failure to be better than ourselves. That's the emotional bedrock for me. The fact of this tremendous condemnation that these children, they're born, they look at human reality and they say, you people have just messed it up. Human life, human society could be so much more beautiful. We're not talking of paradise, that's asking too much. It could just be so much more harmonious. We human beings, we're rich in possibilities. There's so much more that we could actually do with our lives and do with one another in the organization of society. So it's that condemnation of a great deal of the failure of human reality and of human possibility. That's one side of it. The other side of it is the reminder always that the earliest dreams of people are always unfulfilled. And so Abiku children are sort of a reminder. But in Nigerian and in West African terms, the Abiku phenomena is tragic and is frightening. Now, what I wanted to do when I stumbled, fortunately, upon this myth, upon this reality, which is a myth at the same time, because it's so real, it's so pervasive, that nobody notices anymore. No, it's extraordinary. If I hadn't been away from home, I would not have noticed it myself. I've been asked many times whether I'm a spirit child or not. It's completely irrelevant. The fact is that I would not have noticed it if I were at home, because it's a horror, it's a frightening phenomenon. Abiku children are perceived as being not evil, but they
They're
carry.
like angels?
They're not angels as such. Some of them are very negative, and inclined towards death, and some of them are very, very beautiful and they have these fated faces. These faces that always have a melody of death about them, yeah? And growing up, Abiku children always create an aura about them. There's a way people treat them. There's a way people react to them.
So they can live?
Under certain circumstances. Under certain circumstances, they can choose to live. So with the famished road, two things happen. One, I take this dark, negative, terrifying, tragic myth and I turn it round. I make it a luminous myth because it has two sides to it. But the society has always concentrated more on the negative side of the Abiku myth. And you see, I find that what a society concentrates on is what it tends to, as it were, recreate in itself. Yeah? So if you concentrate on the negative side of a myth, well, that negative side is what slowly permeates the society. I wanted, because of my endless dream of the desire for regeneration, and the regeneration of societies, and the regeneration of the human estate, to take that myth and look at its luminous side, because it has a luminous side. It has a very beautiful side to it, which is a serenity with death. And a serenity with death means that life becomes much more expansive and much more wonderful. You see, hence this magical side that people talk about. Because the minute you have this at-homeness with death, where you really don't have any other terrors that surrounds you. And with the spirit child, with Azaro, the most important thing was that he was, for me, a primal hero. Because where most spirit children choose to die, this one chose to live. And he chose to live because of his mother's face. He chose to live in a condition of suffering and in a condition of much difficulty, where there's not going to be any guarantee of luxury or any of the things that spirit children normally want. He wanted to go through earth's pain and suffering, and he wanted to make happy the battered face of his mother.
Who was your model for Azaro? Did you have a model?
No, I didn't have a model. Azaro appeared by himself.
It came just...
He appeared by himself.
With the writing?
He appeared in a tone of voice. A tone of voice, and it's a tone of voice. You see, always through the famished road, and the most important thing, and was the most difficult thing for me to get, was a tone of voice. It had to be a tone of voice that looked at everything with equal serenity. Tragedy, comedy, great happiness, great misfortune, love, hatred, war, bitterness, forgiveness, rock, stone, star, water, urine, everything with an equal grace and a serene tone of voice. Because of this at-homeness with death, you know, once that dark arena of death once that is removed, and this child is chosen to live for the first time, well, you see, life becomes the first great adventure, and therefore everything in life shines. Everything is touched with the miraculous because it's chosen to live for the first time, and so everything is new. So a piece of wood has starlight in it, and even unhappiness itself has a certain inner glow, and that's the tone I wanted. I wanted I suppose there's something of a tone that Miles Davis sometimes has on his trumpet. There's a sort of that tone. But then it goes back to the origins of when one started to write. It's just that tone, that serenity, acceptance, fearlessness, sadness, joy, all mingled in, yet just...
You continue writing about Azaro in your new book, Songs of Enchantment.
I wrote The Famished Road under extreme circumstances, and partly to save my own life. I mean, I don't know, I can't speak for other writers, but for me, writing has to do with three things, always, maybe four. One, the most important bedrock for me is suffering. I can't get away from that fact. Human suffering. What people do to one another, societies, pain, anguish, misery, needless, stupid suffering caused by governments, by people, by individual blindness, by our failures to overcome ourselves, to be better than ourselves, all of that, poverty, all of that. That's one fundamental thing. I can't get away from that. The second thing, I suppose, is the injustice, the kind of continental injustice of Africa and black people in this world. The injustice suffered that continues. It's not a big thing for me, but it's an under music that, again, one can't get away from. The third thing, these are ascending orders, not of importance here, but the telling. The third thing I would say is, and probably one of the most important, is a perpetual desire for regeneration, to go back to the sea, to reconnect the best part of the beginnings of all of our dreams. Whether it's the dreams of races, peoples, the early dream, the best part of our dreaming, the best part of the human frame, the early dream, a desire for regeneration, going back to the beginning, going back to, and I suppose the fourth thing is the spiritual realm, and therefore joy. I wrote The Famished Road under tremendous strain, tremendous suffering, tremendous difficulty, and to transform my life, partly. Because I discovered somewhere along the line that you carry in you the failures of your nation, as well as many other things, many other weights, you carry them in you. And so you have to redeem those things in you as a way of, as it were, making some sort of addition to the world, a little bit of light before you die, yeah? I think I can't speak for other writers, but for me it's important. I have to do that. So the dream came to an end with the famished road. And then I discovered, as some time passed, that actually, as the Frenchman said, epics tend to dream their successors. And I realized that the story of Azaro is incomplete because I've only spoken of the luminous and the early part of his adventure in reality. And I hadn't spoken enough, and therefore more truthfully, about the darker sides of what he encounters in reality, because reality is these two sides, like night and day. And that the early wonder and the early magic and the early joy had to be faced as a sort of Eden, yeah? But then there's human life and its miseries and its wretchedness and its stupidities. That had to be dealt with. And that had to be dealt with because part of the spirit child's condition is this perpetual attraction, the perpetual seduction of death, to return to the other world. The longer he lives, the more he ventures into reality, into life, the stronger is the pull of death. It's inescapable. And therefore, the darker the forces that he has to contend with in order to carry on living. That's the nature of his heroic story. It becomes more heroic because he has to deal with stronger forces that are pulling him towards death. I had to deal with that. And Songs of Enchantment forced itself upon me.
It is a big struggle between you and literature, indeed. I would like to go to another subject that concerns you, and it's completely on another level. You are a great fan of boxing. You have interviewed Cassius Clay or Muhammad Ali and other famous boxers. Why this interest?
First of all, it has to be stressed. I'm not a violent man. I'm not, as you can see from my knuckles, I'm not...
Not a big hand?
No. No, it's...
You never tried?
No, it's just when I was much younger. When I was much younger, I was at school. You see, I went to school when I was... I left England, went back to Nigeria, and I sort of went to school kind of early. And so when I actually got to secondary school, I found myself there in class with people who were sometimes twice older than me and sometimes twice bigger. I was in school with people who had kids. They had children, they were fathers already. And so the point of what I'm trying to say is that I was kind of bullied at school. you were knocked around. You were with people bigger than you, and you got upset upon. And
This is a society. The English society is based on that, is it?
no, this is when I went back to Nigeria.
Oh, when you were back in Nigeria.
Yeah, when I went back to Nigeria, yeah. And one was bullied. No, here I was bullied by my mates, but you know, we're the same height and I could fight them back. That's fine. It's just when you go bullied by people bigger than you, that's a real problem. I suppose at first I could talk my way out of bullying by, you know, telling stories and just generally just talking. But after a while, it didn't work, and I had to resort to more extreme measures. And I took an interest in the martial arts. I had friends who taught me kung fu. It just happened to be the time that the great Bruce Lee was, as it were, catching the imagination of the world. And we kids, you know, cinema was new to us, and so was Bruce Lee. And one thing led to another, and I developed interest in the martial arts. And it has to be confessed that that did have a sort of an impact on my way of looking at things, because I mean, one very great thing about studying the martial arts, especially from very early, is one of its most important precepts is that you must be absolutely alert at all times. Even when you're in front of a sparring partner and you're doing your traditional bow, you don't take your eyes off him. It's basic things like that, and reflexes. And also, I think, as far as writing is concerned, I think the most important thing that gave me was a very cool and unshaken reading of what is happening at any given moment. Because if you fatally misread a moment, you have your jaws broken, basically.
There was another writer, an Argentinian, Julio Cortázar, you might know, who was a great fan of boxing as well.
Ah, yes.
Did you know that?
I didn't know that. I didn't know that. Was he a good boxer?
I don't think he was a good boxer, but he had a great interest.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
And jazz.
And jazz. Oh, it's a good combination.
And you?
I mean, jazz is obvious. If you fall asleep, by falling asleep, if your mind wanders for 1 second, you're out of there. You're thrown out. I mean, it requires electric alertness.
Are you musical?
They tell me I am. I don't think I have any musical talent. I play the trumpet abominably. When I play the trumpet, flies die.
Ben, you also are a student of the philosophy of Nietzsche. How does all of this come together, literature, boxing, and Nietzsche?
Well, I'm interested in philosophy as a whole. It's not just Nietzsche. I mean, as I said earlier, I came to literature actually through Plato. Actually, if I was going to be truthful, I'd say I came to literature through the stories that my mother used to tell me, and not just my mother. My tradition is very much a storytelling tradition. We tell stories to one another, and you know, if your parents want to illuminate a point to you, they tell you a story. And I could tell you thousands of stories that have got moral points to them, which later on I discovered had not the moral point that they intended, but 3 or 4 or 5 others hidden behind them. So there's that storytelling tradition. It's very, very, very important part of my frame. I mean, that Platonic division of the world into the real and the universal, and universal forms and things like that can, I think, to some extent be seen sublimated in The Famished Road. And I think the single greatest image or metaphor, the single metaphor that's had the greatest impact on my imagination, I think, has been the Plato story of the cave. It's so famous. It's so famous, but me encountering that at 14, 15, it was a huge impact. I mean, after that, I could never entirely believe. After that, I could never really entirely believe or trust what is described as orthodox reality. I mean, after an early encounter with Plato, you couldn't accept that what they say is real is all that there is to reality. It was always lingering at the back of your mind that there's more to reality, much more to it, than what we perceive, than what we actually see. And this is reinforced by the African tradition and reinforced by my love of Shakespeare and reinforced by my own experience. So Nietzsche came way down the line. Nietzsche is a recent friend.
Do you feel yourself as a provocative writer?
What do you mean by provocative?
In the sense that you are going to get an extreme reaction from people?
No, I don't think so. I think just by actually striving and struggling with the mystery of life disturbs enough. Just by the very fact of just doing that. You see, because in my experience, and I have to say very quickly, my experience is, you know, in the face of the universe and the millions of people on this planet, extremely limited. But in my experience, I've found that we all shape reality within the mold of what is bearable. So at any given point, we're limiting reality. At any given point, any one of us, not just limiting the reality that we perceive, but limiting the reality of our own consciousness and the truth of our own lives. At any given point, we're asleep inside us. Asleep to many things in our consciousness, in our histories, in our traditions, in our family lines, many, many things. So just trying to, as it were, get across in fiction more of reality, just doing that will disturb. One doesn't have to try to disturb. One doesn't have to try to be provocative. Just trying to see things as they are, or trying to see slightly more than you're capable of seeing, just trying to just do that would disturb, because of the natural resistance we all have to reality, to quote-unquote truth. I don't see myself as a provocative writer. It's just maybe there are one or two areas about which one is not so much provocative, a bit that one tends to sort of insist on a punch. And I think those are areas that have to do with, you know, justice and the individual in society.
Someone wrote that reading Okri was like talking to someone who has a secret. Do you have a secret?
Oh, you should ask that person.
No, but he's talking about someone who he feels has a secret.
Oh, I don't know. I'm not so sure there are really any secrets. And if there are, they can't be kept, nor can they be expressed.
So that's it. That's the answer.
I think if there's any such thing as secrets in that sense, it's in the concealed smile of something which cannot express itself because it just has to be, and is in touch with something that flows. Let's say is in touch with a sort of eternity. I'm thinking here now, actually, of one of my favorite secrets, which is the smile of David. The sculpting by Michelangelo. If you look at it from underneath, it's a smile. If you look at it from above, it's anxiety.
We met you seeing paintings at the Fitzwilliams Museum in Cambridge. 2 questions. How do you relate to Western culture? And second, what pictures do you see with the eye of your mind?
You ask very tough questions. Very, very difficult questions. At first, I think there's always an awkward relationship between Western culture and, say, African or Indian, wherever there's been this colonial interaction, because it brings with it the imposition of another worldview. And I use the word imposition. More than that, it brings with it the insistence that only its worldview is valid and all others are not. You see, the first things that the Europeans did when they came to Africa was they destroyed the artworks of Africans. They burned, I have a poem about this, they burned the fantastic sculptings and the early paintings and the carvings and the bronze work. They burned them. And that burning is symbolic, because what it is saying is that we want to destroy your worldview and impose ours on it. Your worldview is not valid. So, of course, there's going to be, initially there is, and in many places, there still is this antagonistic perception of Western culture. I think that's erroneous. I think that's wrong. I agree with Montaigne, the great French essayist and philosopher, that whatever human beings have thought is of interest to me because it tells me something about the human frame and human elasticity. So I'm interested in everything. I take the whole of human culture as my domain because I'm here on this planet. This is a simple, this is an obvious thing of just coexistence. I'm born. I'm here, and I was born into the planet. You see, so the planet is mine too. I'm at ease with everything, and I accept everything as being my inheritance, as well as the stars and the distant constellations, and the unwritten ages. It's all, I received them all peacefully. But having said that, it did take a while. It did take a while because in the African tradition, I mean, recently, over the last 50 years, there has been a battle against the Western tradition to overthrow it, to remove it, because of this antagonism. And people went too far. And I think it affected and damaged certain artists because of, well, if you're fed on the same thing, after a while you don't grow so well. You know, it's like a tree saying it's not going to, as it were, let itself be nourished by a certain breeze because it's also come from Finland or the United States. It's ridiculous, or that it's not going to take in water from the deep subsoil because this water might also have come from Europe. Absurd. It's ridiculous. You drink what you do. You be nourished by what nourishes you. And as for paintings, I love paintings. I love paintings very much. And it's because paintings are not about reality, but about the possibilities of reality. I think it's the first thing one has to understand, one has to face about paintings. It never is about reality and therefore always questions it. And that's very, very useful to me as a writer, that one must perpetually question reality. One must never come to one must never have a sort of an easy peace. One must never have a contract with reality, whereby you say, look, we're now in agreement. And you keep here and I keep there. You don't have a Camp David on reality. You don't have a ceasefire. There should be no ceasefire. There should be a perpetual questing and a perpetual wrestling and a perpetual dreaming because it's like a river. It just keeps. And painting is the only form I know of that questions reality so directly. And so powerfully. And it's a kind of silent philosophy in that sense.
Ben, thank you very much.
Thank you. You've been really wonderful.
En Londres, Silvia Lemus.